All right, so we're going to mix this up a little bit in the next 30 minutes and talk about longevity, but talk about a different kind of longevity. Longevity of the technology investments you all have made in your organization. So I'll start by maybe talking about something that was said earlier this year by CEOs Microsoft, Satya Nadella, who famously said SaaS is dead. With that, I don't think we believe that that is the case. And I have 4 colleagues next to me that absolutely don't believe that is the case. So we're going to explore that topic and really understand the strategic implications of AI, cloud, data, and how it's evolving a lot of the investments you all have made in your own technology stack. So with me today, I have 4 distinguished guests from some of the leading software companies in the world. And we're going to explore this topic more. So I will do a quick round of introductions. So first, we have Shibani Ahuja from Salesforce. Next to her, we have Brian Emerson from ServiceNow, Riley Hawkins from Workday, and Nathan Thomas from Oracle. And I got all their names and the right companies, so I'm very excited that I started. Thank you. I wasn't even reading, right? No, hold the applause. All right, so with that.
Set the bar really low.
I know, right? We did actually talk while we were in the back that we were going to pivot the panel and just talk about longevity instead, but we decided we would stay on topic so that I get to speak again next year. So Shivani, maybe we'll start with you. Certainly, in all of our prep conversations, we don't, and I don't think Satya necessarily.
All of our prep conversations, we met this morning.
We had one.
One.
It was a great
conversation. Very raw.
It was a great conversation. Just so I'm the comedic relief for this event apparently. It's fine. I'll own it. So we talked a little bit, and I don't think any of us believe necessarily that necessarily Satya also believed. I think it was a concept of SaaS is not dead, but it certainly is evolving, and there's a lot of change coming in the space. So really interested in kind of your perspective from Salesforce point of view on how is that landscape evolving.
Okay, so this concept of SaaS is dead, I've heard it a few times, and of course we talked about this, is maybe there's a small truth to it, but I would expand it to say maybe vertical SaaS, so singular solutions is dead or dying, but I think organizations or SaaS organizations that are evolving to be horizontal platforms, that is where SaaS has got a 2.0, like a renewal of what is it going to take to build digital labor that is going to traverse the virtual halls of your organization is where SaaS is going to help our customers actually. SaaS 2.0 with the horizontal platform concept is what's going to allow our customers to move faster.
So maybe as a follow-up to that, and we could do any of you think of yourselves as SaaS companies or platform companies? SaaS companies, raise your hands.
Both.
Okay. Platform companies?
Both.
100%
right. Platform.
Both. Okay. So I guess that's probably a good transition too. So as we talk about, obviously, the phraseology SaaS is evolving, but there's certainly a convergence within the technology stack. So Brian, maybe to you, like, how are you seeing the landscape from a ServiceNow perspective?
I think the products that we build fundamentally change. Right? I think that's the big thing. And the way I simplify it for my product teams is we're going from like this hard-coded world to this dynamic world. And if you translate that to agentic and think about like the autonomous world of the future, I'll give you an example. Pick tasks that people do every day today. Like there's help desk tickets, there's requests from employees, there's HR requests, there's employee onboarding. There's so many things that are tasks that are done across the organization. In 3 years, I think 75% of those are going to be completely automated using agentic. But the difference is you're not actually hard coding an outcome. You're not saying this automation creates like this resolution. The agents are learning that, right? So it's pretty profound in terms of the adjustment of human capital. So everyone in this room, like think about that human capital, right? If you were to say there's 10,000 tasks that people are doing today, 7,500 of them are going to be gone in 3 years. Like how are you going to disperse this capital to do something positive? But that's the transformation we're really looking at is how are we building our software in a way that allows that autonomous capability to be built in? And that's when I think about SaaS 2.0, it's really going from that hard-coded world to dynamic.
Awesome. Brian, you mentioned human capital, Riley. From a Workday perspective, I'm sure you have a point of view on that. How are you seeing at Workday kind of that evolution?
Yeah, well, I actually agree with a lot of what Brian said. And I was like, Todd's going to ask me, is SaaS dead? So what am I going to say? But I think
softened it, yeah.
I think we would all probably hope that certain parts of SaaS definitely die. because certain parts of SaaS are really frustrating. I mean, we probably think even just the last week, like when did you log into a SaaS platform and do something and you're banging your head against the wall, you want to throw the laptop out the window. The reason I'm at Workday is because our company, it was an AI company we started in 2016, was acquired by Workday last year. And part of the reason that we were acquired is because I think all SaaS tools and companies are looking to ways that disrupt themselves. So basically use AI and agentic AI to automate things that we only were doing because we're operating in a world where we are limited by SaaS. So I think the way we think about it is, just like Brian said, agentic is going to start taking over a lot of the things that humans used to do. So now it's our responsibility, and for Workday we have a unique perspective of we help you manage your people and your people data. And now agents are joining your workforce. So how do we now serve you in that way and give you a system of record and a place to manage these agentic tools? And in that way, I think SaaS and agents are the perfect complement to each other, because agents need a place to go and work and execute tasks and run business process. And SaaS is that sort of foundational data, contextual data layer in which these agents can do things. And you should be able to turn them on and turn them off and see what they're doing and monitor their performance and track them and be able to upskill them and teach them new things as you go and have that transparency the same way you would manage your human workforce.
Great. So Nathan, from your perspective at Oracle, obviously your role is kind of very leaning towards where Oracle sees the future. Maybe respond to that as well. And how are you seeing kind of Oracle's pivot into cloud infrastructure, kind of beyond SaaS, so to speak?
Yeah. So, I think if you think about the underlying thesis that we kind of started with, SaaS is dead, and that concept, I think there's a kind of a soundbite simplicity to that, which sounds appealing. I think fundamentally, though, the SaaS applications and the platforms that we all vend provide a huge kind of infrastructure for business operations. Data, being stored in a particular location in a particular style, with corporate governance, with controls, with all of the access controls you expect. And I think that's going to be, very sticky and have a lot of longevity. As you begin to layer in agentic capabilities on top of that, as you have MCP, and we're talking across all of our platforms, you still have a huge amount of value in that core is sort of existing. I think it's very different if you were a content generation website that's now getting disintermediated by AI. You're very paranoid, and like this is going to be a very concerning revolution. But I think when you look at the types of integrations that have happened in the SaaS world, that stuff's going to be valuable, on an ongoing basis. And so I think there's going to be a lot of future for that. And certainly in our world, as Oracle, we have enough breadth and enough of the data of our customers that kind of plays out inside of our own customer base. Across our databases, across Fusion apps, across all of our different ERP solutions, other pieces, we actually see that just inside of individual companies with the different data that we have.
Yeah, so maybe follow up back to you on that. Most of the folks in this room own most of your platforms, right? And I think that's one of the common conversations is they like all of you, and with a converging tech stack strategy, how are you all thinking about kind of the ecosystem? Like Brian, you brought up MCP, but how are you thinking about working across the ecosystem with your new friends on the stage or other parties? Like, how are you thinking about kind of bringing a open view into the technology so that customers can kind of work across that?
Is that directed to me?
Maybe I'll start with Nathan,
Yeah,
and then we'll go back down the line.
Either way.
Sorry.
Yeah, I certainly think the customers are going to take this action regardless, I think, of what any of us do. I think that the agent capabilities, if you look at MCP, kind of style interactions and engagements that are going to happen across applications, you're going to see it regardless of kind of what you do. It's part of the power of AI is it sidesteps the APIs and actually, the SDKs, and it's going directly into the applications to go get the data and engage with it. So you need to be planning for it and thinking about how you're going to do that. I think the good news is, as you're kind of calling out, it multiplies the value of everything that you have. So that is that now you're stitching things together. And we see it ourselves when we apply it, in a product management sense, that we get incredible insights across data sets and across platforms that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten, just relying on humans to go and do those interfaces.
Yeah. Brian, maybe you want to chime in?
Yeah. I have lots to say on this front. I think okay, I just lost my train of thought now.
We were talking about kind of the openness of how you work across an ecosystem.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're investing a lot in is agentic to agentic use cases. And so I think the interesting thing from a workflow perspective is you're really what you're trying to do is derive insights from data. And it doesn't really matter from our perspective because we're a workflow company of where that data exists. Like we're trying to derive insights. And I'll give you an example. In the observability space, you think about like your monitoring tools like Datadog, Dynatrace, like that whole world. There's a ton of telemetry data that helps you understand like are your applications resilient or not. And in that world, like the way we're approaching it is we don't necessarily need to be the company that's building agentic use cases on top of that data set. We want to be able to derive insights from that data set, right? So in this case, it's agentic agent to agent communication where we say like, hey, when we need to actually do some type of triage, we're going to go and reach out to the agents that exist on those systems that understand that data set in that domain, come back with answers, and then use that to drive workflow. I think the interesting thing about workflow, maybe I'll say for a second, is when you get into this world of autonomous, and you kind of mentioned the world of governance, right, is we call it AI control tower, but like what can these agents do? What data do they have access to? What kind of security do they have? How do you make sure they're doing the right things? Like all of those things kind of come into the picture. So it's not just about how you're interfacing with the broader ecosystem and kind of having that partner play, but then also how are you managing and kind of governing that world holistically?
Sure. Riley, maybe back to you. How, I guess you kind of referenced that you joined Workday through an acquisition, right? Specifically an AI one. How is Workday thinking about kind of building out future capabilities either through acquisition or, even more so, like what has, kind of the acquisition of your team from an AI perspective brought to the platform?
Yeah, well, we I think thriving at Workday, but I think it's not by accident. There's a lot of things that we've done by design. The way we think about, especially AI and agentic development, is to look at, like at Workday, we cover a lot of different business processes today: finance, HR, procurement, basically the entire back office. And so there's a ton of opportunities to start automating things that today are painful. I mean, you could just pick. You could throw a rock at our product pyramid and say, well, there's opportunity in payroll, and there's opportunity in the way that we manage documents and going from documents to financial statements, or there's an opportunity to improve the way that we help procurement leaders negotiate with suppliers. So each one of those is an area we could pursue organic growth or inorganic growth through an acquisition. The interesting thing I think will be for acquisitions, we'll see a lot of AI acquisitions, right? I mean, a vast majority of the acquisitions we'll see will be AI companies and lots of different AI companies. But I think in all situations, there'll be this decision of, is this just like a tech buy where we're just taking the AI and we're plugging it into our existing capabilities to accelerate our roadmap? Or are we going to capture whatever market that this AI company has created on our own? And we have our own market as an AI-powered CLM player selling to legal professionals and procurement. And at Workday, we've continued to invest in that, one, as a way to give customers a way to invest in an early AI use case that while maybe they're thinking about broadly how they want to transform things, while we're also integrating the bits of our platform that belong in all these other different parts of Workday. And that's been really cool, I think, for our customers, because then they've been able to give us feedback about this is how we would integrate some of this AI tooling into the broader Workday tech stack. So we're using it, we're a tech buy in some ways, but we're also a standalone business. And I think for a lot of acquisitions, that'll be a down-the-middle way to make sure that you're delivering value to your customers, but you're also using that as a force multiplier.
Awesome, thank you. And Shibani, Salesforce has too been busy in this space with some fairly notable acquisitions. I think it's been really interesting. I think several of you have used the word kind of intentional acquisition strategy that may not always appear intentional when you've done it, but kind of take us through some of what Salesforce has been up to and how you guys are thinking about it.
So 8 months ago, I was a customer of Salesforce. And if I was asked the same question, I probably would have answered it very differently in terms of Salesforce and acquisitions. And I did 8 months ago describe, I'm like, oh, Salesforce, you're a CRM company that buys companies, that tells us, customers, you've integrated, but really, why is it that I had to integrate one cloud with another cloud? And so I really and second, someone telling me that we have a platform, I would have said, what are you talking about? We don't have a platform. In the last 8 months, what I've learned is this acquisition and integration strategy that Salesforce has that has become very prominent to say, we can't just purchase companies and products and technology and bolt it on. Particularly in the world of where we're going, where I made the reference to like vertical technologies versus horizontal. We're getting very serious about our horizontal roadmap and acquiring technologies that will be complementary, but also even the strategy of how we are onboarding those technologies through the acquisition into our stack. We're not looking at bolting it on. It's actually getting and it's tough. It's tough getting the management teams of these individual products to play nice, to say, no, we have to build it on a platform, on a common code base. We have to be anchored on two things, is a common data fabric, so that as we start to build out these agentic experiences in digital labor that can traverse, that it's not consistently trying to integrate at that point. And the other one is ultimately building and integrating based on experience, whether it's customer experience or it's colleague experience. And so it's really fundamentally shifted our acquisition and integration strategy.
Love that.
And I would say, maybe just to add to that, like in ServiceNow, like the acquisitions we've done, I would say have all been tuck-in technology acquisitions versus buying revenue, right? And because like once you get into that revenue stream, like it becomes really hard to say, how do you continue that revenue stream? Like while you're actually trying to kind of build the platform that you're saying, it's a really tricky proposition. So that's been our approach, is looking for technology opportunities to deliver one platform. And I think the thing that's really worked out well there is when you look at the space we play in, a lot of times when you're doing acquisitions, what you end up doing is putting that burden on your customers.
Yeah.
Meaning like, hey, now you sell them 4 parts of your portfolio, and all of those parts kind of act differently. And like when you take this approach, right, it takes time. Like sometimes we'll take these products in and it'll take 2 years before we bring them out in market. But what that gives to our customers is truly a seamless experience, and that's meaningful, right? So you have to think about like the acquisition candidates in that way. And at least that's been something that's made, I think, ServiceNow really successful.
Yeah. So Brian, maybe a follow-up to that, to pivot a bit. You mentioned kind of customer experience, right? AI is coming to each of your platforms as kind of a strategic enabler to the value that it creates, but it's also a enabler to accelerate time to value through the implementation, right? So interested how you guys are thinking about using AI in the actual build and deploy, maintain of your platforms.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say like user experience for us is everything. So when we think about like the admin, configuration, onboarding, what it takes to get our solution up and running, agentic is a key part of that. I think the thing that we're finding, like maybe the starting point for agentic was like, hey, you have Copilot, you have this thing that's kind of like called bolted onto the experience that's helping you summarize things and do certain tasks. The rewrite of our experience now from administrative to the user experience is agentic is part of everything. And so like we look at it as time to first deploy, right? So like, hey, you buy our solution, right? It takes a certain amount of time to like, let's just say 90 days to get this deployed. How can we use agentic to make that 30 days, right? Or make that 2 weeks? And I think what you're gonna see, and that's not just from ServiceNow, but like a lot of the platforms that are investing in this, is the time for you to take new solutions that you buy from any vendor and get value from them. Like, I think if you can't get down to the point where it's in a matter of weeks for enterprise software over the next several years, like you're gonna be in trouble as a vendor, right? So that's kind of the path we're on. I'm just gonna add one other thing. To get that right, and maybe this is for everyone in this audience, like I look at my team saying like, we have to be AI native first. So yesterday someone brought up an AI week to like train your employees, but every one of my product managers, like we're thinking about how we're using AI ourselves, because my belief is that if you're not kind of running that yourself and thinking about yourself as AI native, the products that you build are not gonna deliver that same value.
Yeah, I love that mindset, and I think that's gonna come out through the rest of this conference, honestly. So Nathan, I guess from an Oracle perspective, how are you seeing kind of the future trend or anything? What gets you excited about what's coming? Like, what should people in this room be excited about?
Well,
Oracle?
I think in our world in Oracle, we see a bunch of different layers of this. So that is obviously SaaS and kind of the application sets that we own, Fusion and some of the, there's a huge stack of PeopleSoft and JD Edwards and a lot of other things in our portfolio that kind of, I think, apply AI tech. But we're also a vendor of the AI technology to a huge, number of the leading purveyors of the solutions and LLMs and the other components of agentic AI solutions. So the largest superclusters in the world are all running on OCI, and we're vending all of these services that are Gen AI enabled, capabilities and code assist capabilities, and integrating those both into our own products and externally. And so for us, it's this just massively fundamental revolution to our business. And I think when you look at everything that we're doing as a company, it is predominantly focused on AI AI activities right now. And so we see it not just in the end user space at all. We see it across all of infrastructure. And so when we think about this for applications for folks considering it, there is this kind of fundamental question of, am I going to consume this? I'm going to be getting token-based solutions from a Gen AI service or something that's kind of an online almost SaaS app itself, or am I getting into the technology and going the next layer deeper? I'm going to be going and doing training. I'm going to be doing fine-tuning. I'm going to be doing grounding and getting into that layer of understanding, hey, I've got to have GPU clusters and I'm going to really own this infrastructure and make that bigger investment. That's one of those big, I think, fork in the road moments. And we kind of play on both sides of that.
Great. Riley, maybe to you, what gets you excited about where Workday's going?
Yeah, I think, well, when we think about AI, I think a lot of times the value prop is oversimplified, or we're not really seeing the full potential of what it could do because we're focused a lot on efficiency. And that is certainly, I think, a big part of the value prop for a lot of our product areas. We're looking at ways that we can help people do the same tasks they do today, but more efficient, or maybe the whole business process gets more efficient because agentic is taking over parts of the business process that were formerly done by humans, and that was a limiting factor, which is great. But I think where I get most excited is about agentic AI doing things that we would never even have thought of doing with people because it was just impossible to do. So I'll give you an example, a story. We've been doing borderline agentic AI work for the last 3 or 4 years, and we, through major crises in the world, have helped organizations navigate through that with different AI solutions. And we were helping a bank at the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine crisis navigate and having to go through 1 million+ contracts and documents to figure out where their business touched different global entities that they needed to be aware of from a compliance perspective. So 1 million+ contracts that they needed to get visibility into within a week. That's not something that you could delegate to any human team ever. But it drove a ton of risk mitigation and compliance protection for them. Another example would be we announced this year and we're building an agent for helping organizations do audits. So one of the things the agent will do is look for discrepancies or anomalies in financial data, but also the business process and what's in documents, and notify you of, hey, there's a control we would recommend to change based on all this aggregated data that we're consuming, not something that you could do with humans. So I think a lot of times AI we think of as something that we need to mitigate the risk of AI ourselves. It itself can be a risk. How do we think of data privacy and security around AI? But I think AI is actually a huge tool for mitigating risk and providing compliance protection in a way that humans could never have done before. And looking at those things, it doesn't even implicate the idea of, okay, what's going to happen to the human workers and things like that. So it's a huge opportunity to just up-level organizations without a lot of unnecessary turnover.
Awesome. Shabani, maybe back to you and changing gears a little bit. One of the other themes that Peter talked about this morning was the speed, right? So every time we talk, for this conference for years, we see the exponential curve. We see ourselves kind of continuing to move up that. As the pace of change moves very quickly through kind of your platforms, how are you guys thinking about, like, what advice would you give to the folks in this room that are running Salesforce on how quickly they need to work and think about where you guys are going?
I think my day job is an awesome day job. I meet with CIOs every single day. Like, that is literally what I get to do. And it's of multiple company sizes.
Me too. I love it.
Kind of cool. Of the conversations that I've had, I'd actually, it's not even a Salesforce specific advice that I'd give at the onset, but it would be to pause and consider what is the architecture that you may have needed for predictive AI, which is, again, AI is a spectrum. And we are using the term AI so loosely. Yeah. Understand what was the architecture that was needed for predictive, to what is the architecture needed for generative, to then so then you can contrast and compare what is the architecture needed for autonomous non-deterministic. And I think that this is why I say this is so important, because I hear so many conversations where sales teams are talking about agentic and autonomous and all of these right buzzwords, and CIOs or IT leaders are using language that is very reminiscent of generative, of a co-pilot, of something that sits on the side. As we are going through this transformation of digital labor working with human labor, understanding quite to the context of what that means in terms of you're not bolting on digital labor on the side of your desk to do something. You are trying to ingrain that digital labor and embed it within your flow of work. And I think that the more and more organizations and companies and customers understand what that truly means, they'll start to look at platforms like Salesforce entirely different. So many of our customers have all of the component parts because they have bought these modules that we are now building on a single code base that will allow them to move faster. It is becoming a customer engagement and a colleague enablement platform. So I think that that's what I would say. Think about that architecture, discover and do that capability assessment of where do you have that technology within Salesforce that is enabling you to go faster.
Great. I know we have a few minutes. Are there any questions? I want to make sure. Yes, looks like we have a question.
So we're pulling up questions, and maybe just
Brian,
one advice I'd say is just play, like with your teams, to play with the technology from any vendor, like us, like the tools that are out there that you're not even buying from any of the vendors here. Like if your teams are not playing with this stuff and checking it out, there's no better time right now to have a learner mindset. I think as leaders, like in this room, like if you're not pushing that on your team to just play with the tools that your vendors are providing to just see what is out there and learn. If you're not doing that now, like start tomorrow or tell your team to do that today.
You can text them now.
Man, it's like if you fall behind now, like you're never coming back. So play.
That's a good point. Looks like we have a question in the back.
Fascinating discussion. Folks, thank you very much for it. I'm Pankaj, founder of Opkey, and we are partners to all 4 of these organizations. We help enterprises automate the entire life cycle of implementation, support, and testing of these platforms. My question is, we are seeing a trend in many of the industries where the UI for the ERP systems, and when I say ERP, it's an umbrella term for all the enterprise application, that is going away. I mean, people are already talking about a very near future where there would not be a UI, maybe a single chat interface. And as reasoning capabilities evolve and workflows are made autonomously, all the business users would need to do is just come at this interface and do anything that they want to do with the entire ERP system or a HCM system. So the question is, do you as leaders see that future as a possibility at some point of time? And if yes, how far are we away from that reality? Maybe in parts, if not entirely in full.
I'm happy to take that one. Yes, I see that as a future, and I see that coming very fast. And I'll speak very specifically from a Salesforce perspective. Slack has always had this connotation of, no, I've got Teams, I don't need Slack. It's just for communication. Slack is really being set up in the way we have integrated into our deeply unified platform on a single code base to be that interface, to be the space and place where digital labor and human labor is coming together, not just to have conversations, but where the actual actions are being performed. That's exactly the future that I see coming very quickly. It is, the alternative is you have agents in different places for different things. You have agent sprawl. You're now suddenly pivoting. What CRM was meant to do was harmonize. You're now otherwise going to be pivoting to so many different places with these agents if you're building them on your own or if they're built on different technologies, as opposed to having a common UI, a common space where you start and end your day. Come to Dreamforce and you'll find out.
I believe it's in October.
Yes, it is.
I think honestly, I feel like we're a long way away from that. I think the one thing, and I would say 3 to 5 years out, right? If we ever get there, I think there's reasons for user experiences based on different personas inside your organization. Blending that into there's the single world where you're always using Teams or Slack, I think is just unrealistic based on the way Teams work. But I do think that there's a lot of interfaces that you have through Teams, Slacks, or any of your communications channels that then tie into back-end work that ServiceNow would do, for example, right? So we have agents that are initiating workflows to help resolve user cases. Those might start with coming from a Teams conversation, right? But then the back-end work that you're actually executing to get something done for that employee is still initiating kind of our, call it our back-end platform.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of persona approach here, right? So I think if you think about a product manager wanting to go get insights about what customers are doing, that may be something where, hey, I'm going to ask my agentic, chat interface, and it's going to produce a chart for me that shows me my user percentages, and that may supplant a UX that used to be there. If my CFO is trying to close the books for the quarter and report to the street, I don't think that's happening. I think that's going to be a very structured interface where they're going to have a consistent approach, and so there's going to be these differences.
Other questions? No, I think they want their time back. I asked for 2 hours, I got 30 minutes. So with that, great conversation. And this was not meant to answer every question, but really to start the dialogue for the rest of the conference. So I know most of you will be around. Please interact with the folks. I'm sure they'd be happy to ask questions. So with that, Shibani, Brian, Riley, and Nathan.
You got it.
Good job.
Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.